we'd like to post it to YouTube after.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, there we go.
Thank you, Desiree.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, Will, it's 2 o'clock. Do you want to get started or you want to wait a moment?
No, we can start.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. The clock behind me is going off. I don't know if you can hear it.
We cannot.
Great. Teams is fantastic at this. All right, Evan, I don't know if you want to start sharing slides. Just we can
Yes.
begin with just some quick introductions, and then we'll do a revisit on the studies, some of the purpose and the goals that we had laid out back in the beginning, and then we'll hand it over to Evan and the team at AECOM to lead the presentation. So just to quickly start things off, I'm Rich Donovan. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning with NVCOG, and I know we have a number of staff in the room if you would all like to do some quick introductions. Mark, you want to start?
Sure. Mark Nielsen, I'm the Assistant Director at NVCOG.
I'm Anthony Lagana, I'm a transportation planner at NVCOG.
I'm Nicole Solomon. I'm also a planner on the transportation team.
And I'm Desiree Blanchard, Communications and Community Engagement on the team.
Great, thank you. And then Evan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Evan Warman, Transportation Planner with AECOM. Let me see if Casey's on yet. I guess he's not on, so we can move on in the introductions.
All right. So thank you again for being here. Evan, if you want to pull up slides now, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, I'm
so
sharing.
I just want to.
Do you see it?
You are sharing. I do not see it here. I don't know if they see it in the room.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. That's interesting.
Well, while Evan works through that, just
quick... 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I know what I did. Okay, give me 1 second.
Knowing what you did is half the battle.
Yes. 1 second. Share my screen. Okay. Can you see it now?
No.
No.
Okay. I'm definitely sharing my screen. Interesting. Let me try that.
That looks like that's working.
Let me try. Okay, I'll try that. I'm not sure. Present from beginning. You can tell me if you see that.
We see the presenter mode.
You see the presenter mode. Okay, I'll switch it.
And now we're seeing your desktop.
Yeah.
You had it before, you just needed to start it.
Oh, it was discorded? That's interesting. So from current slide.
No, now go again to what you did.
Yeah.
You just had to double click.
Yeah, from current.
Okay, now you have to start.
Yeah, so you're showing presenter mode. You just need to switch which one is presenter mode and which one is the full slide.
and I did that, I thought.
So I would go to where it says display settings and click down, and then swap that way. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Let me go back to the agenda. Okay. Everyone can see that?
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so let me just go through the agenda quickly. We've done at least some introductions. I'm going to go through project goals and scope review, and then section 3 is really where we'll be spending most of our time today. We're going to present the roadway concepts. You've seen sort of high level view of what we're planning along the corridor, and what I want to spend more time on today, and I'm sure you'll have some questions and comments, are the spot improvements at the specific intersections where we zoom in, and we'll give you hopefully a bit more detail than what you've seen in the past. And then feedback, questions, and suggestions are number 4, and number 5 is next steps. Okay, so I just want to introduce the project team. Here on the top, we have the past first select woman, Barbara Perkinson, and unfortunately, I don't have a photo. I could not get a photo in time of Paul Zupa, the incoming or the present first selectman. But I just want to acknowledge that he'll be the one taking these recommendations and your thoughts as well, and making it come to fruition. And then we have on the bottom right, the AECOM project team, myself, Ashley, and Casey, and then Rich, Mark, and Aateo. Anything else, Rich?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So I'll just take a minute on the project goals and scope review. I know we've all heard this several times, but we're charged with reducing persistent safety concerns and reducing conflicts among automobiles, pedestrians, and cyclists in a way that maintains your town's historic character. And we also want to improve connectivity to local schools and parks that are close to Main Street. So of course, our focus is on Main Street, but we're also charged with going a little bit beyond, of course, and recommending sidewalks and other strategic connections east-west. And here on the image in the top right, we see the 2 historic districts in your town. Here's the scope. We have sort of five different sections here on the right: public outreach and engagement, data collection analysis, future conditions, concept development analysis, and number 5, final report and implementation plan. So we're creating the final report now, but of course we welcome your views on 4, concept analysis, concept development. And sort of throughout the whole process, I want to really thank you all for your feedback. We have sort of 2 advisory committees, the TAC and the PAC. I know that's confusing, but the TAC is more technical and involves a lot of CTDOT people. We met with them a week and a half ago or so, and we've taken their feedback and incorporated that feedback into what you're going to see here. So hopefully that will be fruitful for us. And then throughout the whole project, we've had project management, of course. Okay. So I just want to, sort of break this into 2 sections. As I said earlier, we have the initial concepts and cross sections along the entire corridor. So we analyzed the feasibility of creating a shared use path based on topography, spatial availability, physical constraints. The presence of utility poles was a big input in this analysis in your town. And of course, integrating with existing and planned facilities. So we analyzed a shared use path. It's also sometimes called a side path, but try to keep using shared use path for reasons of consistency. It accommodates all users, pedestrians, bicyclists, and others in a shared space. You can separate them, but generally speaking, it's best to think of it in a shared manner. And this was chosen because it most completely separates users, pedestrians and bicyclists from drivers, which is appropriate on larger streets with higher traffic volumes. We know that biking and walking with traffic, especially once you get to those higher volumes and speed, is uncomfortable. And so we propose to completely separate the users. And additionally, we are building on the work of the Woodbury Plan of Conservation and Development, which is the town's planning Bible and a high level at least. And that mentions the importance of improving bicyclist safety and comfort. So here, I just want to show you a little bit more detail with the shared use path, why we're using it. As you can see here on the bottom left, the FHWA, our federal government, offers guidance on recommended facilities. And basically on the left axis, you can see volume, vehicles per day is how they're measuring it, and speed on the x-axis, miles per hour. And generally, you can think of it as you get higher volumes and higher speeds, you have to offer increasing levels of protection to maintain that level of comfort. And so, I just wanted to show where we are in Woodbury. In terms of miles per hour, we're, certainly north of 25, 30, 30, sometimes 35 miles an hour. And in terms of volumes, we're looking at, 8,000 or so, or a lot higher, if you look on the left. And so that it's generally over 8,000. In some locations, it's a bit higher. Because the corridor is within a rural town context, which is the left chart, the shared use path is the most appropriate. This chart here on the right shows what you can do when you're in a more rural environment, outside of town, and maybe there a shoulder is more appropriate. But we're within the town, so we're going to use the one on the left. Another reason is that we are trying to tie into surrounding shared use paths existing and planned. So we think building on that makes sense. Design principles, it can range from about 8 feet at the very minimum, when for short distances, to ideally 12 to 14 feet. That's good when you have higher volumes. You can include a 4-inch center line stripe, but this is not necessary, and this is not recommended in the project area. As I said in, I think, previous meetings, we don't anticipate just that level of bicyclist or pedestrian volume. And of course, you need shoulders, clear space, and ideally a horizontal separation between the road and the shared use path of about 5 feet. Importantly, when you're crossing roadways, you can elevate the shared use path as well, and we recommend that in certain areas. So here's the general concept laid out. It's proposed along the east side of the roadway in the southern portion of town, extending from Woodbury Place, we're calling Constantine's Restaurant, that general area, to the intersection of Hollow Road, Doolittle Hill Road, Main Street, Park Road. At that point, or slightly north of that point, we're proposing to cross over onto the west side of the roadway to boost connectivity and accessibility for the central section of town. As I'll talk about a little bit later, there is a short alternative where the path stays on the east side until 317. And we'd love to hear your views on that. But at that point, it would cross over at 317. We're recommending major urban design improvements near Hollow Park, and then other strategic intersection improvements. Here's just some sample dimensions. In the past months, we took the existing widths of the different components of the right-of-ways. You can see here on the top left and the bottom left at 2 different locations. Location 1 is between Sherman Hill Road and Old Sherman Hill Road at the Dollar General, and location 2 between Highway 317 and Mountain Road. And we provided some hopefully helpful visualizations for you all. You can see here sort of a high-level view on the top, and at the bottom a street-level view, showing that shared use path here on the right side, on the bottom right, and what that would look like. Go to the next screen. Location 2, it's near Drakely Real Estate, just north of the intersection with 317. As you can see here, the top shows that high-level view, and now we are on the west side of the street, and you can see that nice wide path that you have in your town on the west or left side. Just give me a second. The animation seemed to slow it down. Okay, so where does the path begin and end? As I mentioned, on the southern side, we're proposing it begins at Woodbury Place, Constantine's Creek Restaurant, which is on the east side of the roadway. So we'd start there, and then on the northern end, it would extend to Flanders Road to serve dense housing developments on Quasick Road. However, we'll talk a little bit more about this. Middle Road Turnpike could serve as an interim northern endpoint if you break it into stages, as we're recommending, and that would allow students to access Naugatuck High School. And we'd recommend, and we will recommend an RRFB to help people cross at Middle Road Turnpike. So that's sort of where we're going: Woodbury Place all the way up to Flanders Road, with an interim point of Middle Road Turnpike. So here, I'm just going to quickly go through these because I'm going to go through them in more detail in a minute. But we'd start here on the east side of town. We've identified some sightline issues near Curtis Road. We go north, and we are recommending an RRFB just a little bit north of Constantine's Restaurant, for the fact that there are these communities here on the west side of town, some condos and sort of dense housing developments that we want to make sure have access to this shared use path. They're on the west side, the path here is on the east side. So we'd recommend adding in an RFB with other treatments to increase safety. So we go up on the east side of the roadway, cross Middle Quarter Road, and we put in high visibility pavement markings, and install pedestrian signals to enhance safety and accessibility for all users. At the same time, we do intersection lane reconfiguration and signal timing.
Hey, Evan?
Yes.
Yeah, just before you go, there's a question, or do you want some questions during
Okay.
it? Or do you want to wait until we're all done?
I think we can take a few questions now. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have a general question. When you talked about the RFB, those are those rapid flash beacons. Can you briefly explain to me what that is or what it looks like? What
Yes.
for these sections?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of that?
What does it mean for these sections to have the rapid flash beacons?
Oh,
To serve as a warning?
yes,
Coming up against the curves?
Go to the picture, Evan, of the existing one.
Let me, I forgot, was that back?
And while you're doing that, so yeah, the purpose of the RRFB is that it is a more visually, it draws more attention than just a sign, but it is, you had it right there. Yeah, so so that's a RRFB. So it's a sign mounted, essentially it's a enhanced warning sign. So the warning sign normally is just saying to you there's a crosswalk here. What the black box below the little arrow, maybe just point at with your pointer, Evan, on the post itself, flashes when activated. And so that's what the drivers will see, and particularly at night. But also, it's very noticeable during the day. But so it's essentially an enhanced warning sign. It is essentially the most aggressive passive measure we have. The next step up the pole in terms of facilities we can use to enhance pedestrian crossing safety would be a group of independent tools, essentially called pedestrian hybrid beacons. And all of those are different because they actually stop the traffic on the road. They have a red light facing the road. So that's the big difference between that level and this level, the RRFB. Now the guidebooks and the regulations for when you can use those pedestrian hybrid beacons have very high thresholds for the numbers of pedestrian crossings that you expect. It's in the hundreds per hour. So, honestly, other than in major urban areas, I've hardly ever worked on projects that recommended them. So this tool, the RRFB, is essentially the most aggressive way, tool in our toolkit to let drivers know and alert them to the fact that not only is there a crossing, but there's actually a pedestrian trying to use it at that time, because it has that button that's actually actuated on it. So again, person walks up to it, pushes it, then the lights start flashing like crazy.
I just want to share a follow-up on that. One of the major criticisms we have about the current one is that some of the drivers can't see it because the sign is set too far back from the road and they don't see it until they're right on it. So are you saying what you're proposing in this new section will be different? It will be closer to the road?
Yes, the sight lines will be better. Yes, I know what those people are talking about regarding the one near Mountain Road. This one, the one we're proposing here, we've looked at the sight lines. They're much better. It's I wouldn't say more appropriate because that implies the other one's not, but it's even a better set of sight lines than it is a much better set of sight lines than the one in town today.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and one thing is, I really I think it's important to think about RRFBs in concert with other features. I know we've heard from all of you and heard from others too about the lack of efficacy of the RRFB on Mountain Road near Judson, and we are proposing improvements there too. But we want to make sure that you understand that we're working to boost the RRFB's visibility. So we sometimes do other treatments with that, and I'll go into more detail when I talk about Mountain Road. Okay. Any other questions for now, or good to go?
I think we're good right now.
Okay. So here I just want to show you, the trail would be on the east, as I'm talking about, these housing developments here on the west, and there'd be a sidewalk here on the other side of the town, other side of the road, to allow people to get to the RRFB and walk to the north, cross, and get to the path. So that is also another recommendation we're recommending there. There are some visibility issues near Curtis Road intersections. There's a speed limit of 40 miles per hour at this point. There's a vertical crest along the roadway, which reduces motorist line of sight. You could see that here in number 1, creating a potential safety hazard. Immediately south of Curtis Road, the horizontal curvature of the roadway creates other sightline obstructions due to vegetation, stone wall, utility poles, and that also limits some visibility. And then south of Curtis Road, you can see here number 4, there's a vertical sag curve, which currently meets a 20-mile-per-hour design speed. So it's designed for 20. People are, going 40 or sometimes even higher. And then number 3, as you move north, there's an additional horizontal curve with some sightline issues. And so there's some existing problems here that we want to improve. We have near-term and long-term recommendations here. We want to trim trees within the site triangle, install signage for 30 miles per hour, back-to-back chevrons with possible flashing beacons, and I'll show you what that looks like in the next image. Speed reduction pavement markings, rumble strips in the center and or at the roadway edge, and then installing the trail itself and the regrading that will require, and the cutting of foliage, I should say, will automatically boost visibility and reaction time. Long-term install street lighting to address the deficient vertical sag curves, and then reprofile or reconstruction of the road at deficient crest locations, but that's a long-term thing that we're recommending. So here you can see sort of what that looks like, and you can see here on the top left, there are these speed reduction markings that I talked about just a minute ago, that are little markings in the road, the little white markings, if you can see within the roadway, that automatically narrow the road and how it appears to drivers. And what that means is that drivers react as if they're driving faster than they are, because you have these little repeated dots. So that's just an example of one thing that we're recommending at that location, to slow down those drivers, especially when we're talking about installing an RRFB there. Okay, Middle Quarter Road. The main concern we heard is that at Middle Quarter Road, if you're going west and you're hitting Route 6, there's a pretty broad westbound approach lane. There's mixed traffic sharing an unmarked 33-foot lane, which is rather confusing and could cause some danger. So we propose reducing that to 14 to 15 feet and making it clear that that is one lane instead of 2 to 3. And we feel like that could enhance safety and improve pedestrian bicyclist crossing comfort, as well as driving safety. There's a very minimal impact on traffic flow. The future level of service is expected to remain an A, which it currently is. We recommend high visibility crosswalks with stop bars across all roadways. The stop bars in particular would discourage drivers from blocking in pedestrians. New pedestrian signals, a new sidewalk on the west side of the roadway. That's there in the yellow, as you can see on the west side of the road. And we're also creating a small new green space near Southbrook. We're not talking about a huge amount of green space, but it is a modest increase, and hopefully will be more aesthetically pleasing and environmental, right? So that's what we're proposing at that intersection. As we move north, I want to just give you a high level view of what I'm going to talk about over the next minute. At Sherman Hill Road, Route 46, we're talking about upgrading signal timing to improve operations and narrowing the right turn pocket on Route 6, creating some nice new green space. At Hollow Road, as we've talked about, we're going to switch over from the east side to the west side. And we're proposing a whole suite of improvements that I won't really go into right on this slide, but will on subsequent slides. And then at Sycamore Avenue, Route 317, upgrade the crossing to accommodate the shared use path. So I'll go into more detail, particularly at that Park Road location. But first, let me talk about Sherman Hill Road. We'd maintain the current travel pattern, generally speaking, while upgrading signal timing, integrating that with the new shared use path on the east side. We're proposing to preserve the two existing high visibility crosswalks at the intersection to maintain that pedestrian visibility. And we're recommending adding a new crosswalk on the north leg. We want to retain existing left turn movements from Route 6 Main Street and the left turn lane from Sherman Hill Road, Route 64. What I talked about a minute ago, I guess the big change here is shortening that right turn pocket from Route 6 and using that space to add new green space south of the intersection. This will also slow down traffic and help increase safety there. And we're proposing to keep the shared left and through lane on Sherman Hill Road. The existing and projected level of service would both be a B. So this would not degrade traffic or make it worse. So here you can just see what that looks like. There's that new green space here as we're narrowing that, we're shortening, I should say, that right turn pocket. There's a new sidewalk on the south side of Route 64 linking to the Woodbury Flea Market. That's in yellow. That's a location that people had talked about wanting to go to and accessing quite a lot. So we did add that little sidewalk in, connecting to an existing sidewalk there. And then we're proposing sidewalks or shared use paths on both sides. And that would require new bridges over a little waterway. So here's the main location that we talked about: Doolittle Hill, Hollow Road, Park Street, Main Street area. General concept is to switch the shared use path from the east side to the west side at a mid-block location near Main Street. There is an alternative, which is to continue the path northward on the east side without crossing the street and then cross later at Route 317. So I'd love to hear what people think about that. But here are the different components of what we're proposing. We're proposing to close Main Street north of Park Road to through traffic and establishing a traditional intersection to enable east-west vehicular movements between Hollow Road and Park Road. We want to close the southern section of Hollow Road south of the proposed roadway segment to sort of boost park connectivity and tie the park closer to the city, to the town. And then close Doolittle Hill Road to vehicles, reconstructing it as an 8-foot shared use path. And again, use that space for parkland. So this was the original concept here, and I want to show you sort of how it's evolved. The green shows that new green space that we're proposing, and this new, traditional intersection here. the initial grade was very high on the roadway here, so we did change it to from 13 feet to 13% to 10%, which is still a pretty steep grade, but a lot better. And access to homes and businesses from Main Street would use an access road from the south. Right here, as you can see, we still maintain access to these homes and businesses, respectively. The third recommended concept is this, and there's an option within that concept to keep the trail on the east side. After talking with the PAC, we had decided, and we heard that many people make left turns here from Route 6 onto Hollow Road and Park Road. So we decided to add left turn lanes in there on Route 6. Because of that, we want to keep this crossing away from those left turns. There was discussion about moving the crossing into the intersection itself, but we decided to keep it north of the intersection right there. And then this crossing right here would have an RRFB with advanced yield markings. So that's the concept that we're at right now. And then there'd be that shared use path sort of going down into the park. You'd gain a lot of connectivity and we feel better access to the park. But we'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. So we were able to do this because traffic volumes were pretty low. But there are still some issues with this. The new grade, which is 10%, I said, it's still steep for certain drivers at certain approaches. We're still maintaining driveway access for these two businesses here. We are recommending to add left turn lanes, which does widen, it's helpful for drivers, but of course it widens the cross section and potentially could make crossing a little bit more difficult. Constructing the full intersection requires a large amount of time and money. And so, this could be broken into different sections and different phases. So that's just something to think about. Okay, moving north to Route 317 Sycamore Avenue, we want to talk about what we're proposing here. You could see this image shows the new recommendation. So I'll just give people one more minute to look at that. So we're recommending new left turn lanes on Main Street Route 6 with shared through right turn lanes at each approach. We've heard from many people that adding left turn lanes would be helpful because that way when someone's waiting, they're not holding up the crowd behind them and drivers aren't sort of zooming around them. Oh, I'm sorry. So that we feel like this would help safety for everybody, drivers, bikers, and the like. This new left turn lane in particular will assist southbound drivers turning into the government center complex and turning into the library. That's a pretty common movement there. We're recommending enhanced pavement markings to make it more clear to drivers, not to encroach on those parking spaces on the western side of the roadway. At this location, there is an existing curb extension that's fairly new on the northwestern side of the roadway, so we're recommending to, of course, keep that. We've shown and we recommend maintaining ADA parking to make sure people with disabilities and others can park pretty close. And we are adding a modest amount of green space there, so hopefully that'll be helpful. We determined queue storage lengths on Route 6 for those left turn lanes based on sort of historical queuing and what's the 95th percentile of queue. And so it's about 50 feet, but the southbound queue may be a little bit less. One other thing I want to talk about is we're recommending a new sidewalk across the business on the southeastern corner of the intersection. It's sort of poorly defined. Pedestrians sort of walk through that parking lot there, and there's not really a curb. And so we're recommending make that more clear, add a new sidewalk there, and hopefully improve safety. This is what I'm talking about, that business. As you can see, the sidewalk's just sort of ill-defined. And we want to make that more explicit while also maintaining parking, of course, for that business.
You know where DOT is with that at the moment? Because they were supposed to already be putting the sidewalk in front of that building.
I do not off the top of my head. I will ask them. Yeah, that's something that's really important. We've heard.
And I kind of left an area unfinished.
Yeah. We'll ask them. Okay, getting to the existing RRFB, how are we going to improve yielding? People have talked about, poor yielding rates here, and certainly we observe that in field observations. So there's a few things we can do. An elevated crosswalk can literally elevate pedestrians and increase their prominence among drivers, right? That would be very helpful here, we think. Important caveat here at the bottom: the CTDOT has historically not allowed these on state highways. However, there was one recently installed in East Haven, and the department seems like they're currently a lot more open to that and sort of exploring other locations. And so, we did show this to them, and they do seem more amenable, more open to that. So we do have it in the report. Another thing are speed reduction markings, which I already talked about. Here's a better view than perhaps what you've seen earlier. And basically these white squares on the interior of the lane create the appearance of greater speed among drivers. And suddenly drivers say, whoa, I'm going way too fast, I gotta slow down. And they've been shown to indeed do that. And so that's what we recommend in advance of the intersection. And we have a little engineering drawing here for you as to roughly what that would look like to slow down drivers. Okay, looking at the time. Okay, heading into the final section. So this final northern section, what are we recommending? At Judson Avenue, the new design of the shared use path, could be used to shorten the crossing for drivers coming from Judson. That's something we noticed in field observations. It's sort of a wide lane. So using the new installation of the shared use path to sort of shorten that crossing would be, we think, helpful for everybody. As we talked about at Mountain Road, install pavement speed reduction markings, and then longer term, raise the crosswalk. Moving north at Washington Road and Pleasant Street, we have a suite of options that we'll talk more about in just a few minutes. We want to upgrade the crossing to, of course, accommodate the shared use path. We recommend narrowing the curb line for eastbound drivers on Washington Road who are turning right. And you'll see what that looks like in a second. Installing new left turn lanes on Route 6. Include granite curbing and parking striping at Canfield Corner Pharmacy parking lot. That's sort of similar to the other business I talked about, where it's ill-defined. It sort of the sidewalk melds into the parking lot, and you don't really know where pedestrians should be and where drivers should be. And so just clarifying that will help. We do recommend extending the sidewalk northward from the pharmacy on the east side, and also removing an existing crosswalk. That's the only crosswalk we're recommending for removal, but because the left turn lanes that we're proposing to install here on Route 6, preclude the location of that crosswalk, and I'll just show you where that is. At Middle Road Turnpike, installing a new high-vis crosswalk and an RRFB to make crossing safer at Middle Road Turnpike is recommended. This second point here, the crossing and the RRFB could be installed now without a sidewalk on Middle Road Turnpike. That might make more sense to wait to make that investment until there is a sidewalk, say down Middle Road Turnpike. However, it could be a standalone type of thing. So that's just something to think about. The school is along Middle Road Turnpike. So, ideally there'd be a sidewalk there so that students could cross here safely and then, easily walk to the school. And then finally at Flanders Road, this could be the final phase of the project, and that could be done sort of in concert with a bridge replacement over the Naugatuck River. So let me just give you a little bit more detail specifically with Route 47. High-speed right turns from Washington onto Route 6 were cited by many. And so what do we want to do about that? We want to extend the curb line north and to reduce vehicle speeds and narrow that the width that path users have to cross. We'd add left turn lanes on Route 6, as you can see here in this image. And I give some information on storage length that I won't get into. But the northbound left turn lane would require a longer left turn pocket than the southbound would. And what does that mean for the existing crosswalk? It means that we would have to remove that crosswalk south of Route 47 if we were to add in those left turn lanes. So just something to think about. And here's a better image. So we'd be removing, that crosswalk at Church Street, but we'd have 4 high vis crosswalks right at Route 47. We'd have a new sidewalk on the east side. So we feel like the trade-off is hopefully good. But again, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Question? Okay, well, I'm looking at the time. So yeah, we're almost done. Again, just showing you, we made some large sheets for people, showing the overall design over 4 different sheets. So again, we'd start on the east side of the road at Woodbury Place, and there'd be a crossing north of that point. We're looking at potential property impacts north of Scupo Road, which is shown in red right here. There's a new sidewalk on the west side of town in the yellow on the west side. Moving north, we're proposing a curb reconfiguration at Middle Quarter Road, new green spaces and a shortening of the right turn lanes at Sherman Hill Road, new bridges north of Sherman Hill Road. Those are in orange here. And again, a new sidewalk on the west side of the road. So again, here, just revisiting this, we stay on the east side of the road until it crosses north of Doolittle Hill Road, using a new crossing on RRFB. That would benefit from Main Street dead ending north of Park Road. That's the overall vision. There'd be new parking set up at Route 317, sort of better clarified with new left turns, boosting traffic, and stopping drivers from going into those shoulders as they do now. And there's new sidewalk on Main Street, Route 6, north of Mountain Road on the east side through the heart of town. The shared use path is on the west side in this northernmost section, north of Mountain Road. There's new left turn lanes on Main Street, Route 6 at Route 47, Washington Road. There's a new RFB at Middle Turnpike Road. And depending on the replacement schedule of that river bridge, there'd be a new bridge, potentially, a separate bridge that pedestrians and bicyclists could cross on. Again, that depends on the replacement schedule of that bridge. The existing bridge is in pretty good shape, but there's some scouring. The superstructure is in satisfactory condition, while the substructure underneath is only in fair condition. So again, that a new bridge could be wide enough to incorporate that shared use path, or perhaps simpler. The shared use path could be installed on another bridge separate from that main bridge. And then here we go into northern endpoint. The ultimate endpoint, the scope of the project is Flanders Road. However, it might make sense to do that as part of a ladder project. Again, with the bridges. Middle Road Turnpike, we think, could be a nice interim endpoint, which would allow that connection to the high school. And we think that a new crossing here at Middle Road Turnpike with an RFB with advanced yield lines would really help east-west connectivity in the northern part of this town. Again, traffic, we've looked at traffic, and to make a long story short, we didn't really find impacts. We'll include those, of course, within the final report, but we didn't find major impacts there. So just to conclude, corridor concept, it's on the east side of town. It would cross over near the park to better serve the main commercial areas of the town, and so that there's better right of way on that side. We're proposing major urban design and access improvements near Hollow Park. And then what type of traffic improvements have we talked about today? Lane narrowing, better pavement markings, safer ped crossings, and lane reconfigurations, new left turn lanes in particular. Signal upgrades along the entire corridor as needed, integrating that with the shared use path. New RFBs in 3 locations with advanced lane markings and crossings that go along with that. And then as we talked about at Mountain Road, your existing RFB, how can we improve yielding for that and make sure cars are stopping in that center portion of town. So I'm looking at the time, and I'm done talking, but we'd love to hear any and all thoughts that you have. We're all ears. So thank you.
I don't know if we talked about this and I missed it. Do you have a recommendation about speed limit, maintaining a certain speed limit from, let's say, Constantine's through town?
We have talked about that a bit with, pardon me, with CTDOT. Casey, I don't know if you want to add any information there. We can have a recommendation in the final report about that. Did you have any additional info?
Yeah, I think we had talked about identifying like the core part. I'm trying to remember. It's sort of approximately from where the RRFB is to the south, as Rich, is the phrasing like a neighborhood speed zone or something to that effect.
Pedestrian safety zone.
Thank you. Pedestrian safety zone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think maybe we can just add a slide on that, Evan, maybe in the overall section. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, we have thought of that, and we think it's a good idea.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
At one point, I think several meetings ago, you talked about Gateway as driving in north from Watertown. What would it look like? Would you propose some sort of sign or something to designate as you're coming after that flat area that we're coming into a town, and same thing from the south?
From the south, yeah. We talked about that as well, and we can. I have some ideas about where we put it and what it could look like. So I can add in some slides into this, and also maybe more importantly, the final report about some initial steps about how to go about doing that and what that would look like, and considerations with where to place it in particular.
And I think the combination of both the recommended RRFB and then the speed reduction markings at the existing one, in tandem with some of the additional narrowing that Evan mentioned on a couple of the approaches in the southern section of the corridor, will have that effect. And maybe we just need to be a little bit more clear in those slides about noting them, because I think we've kind of built those into these other recommendations, that kind of gateway treatment.
And just, one of the things we've heard and talked about a little bit is some of the landscaping that would go along with the shared use path, right? We want the town to still maintain its charm and be a pleasant place to be. And so some of that landscaping will also help convey that message that you're not on a rural road anymore. You're now in an area where you can expect there to be pedestrians and other activity.
What kind of landscaping are you talking about? Are you talking about trees? Are you talking about shrubs? I didn't see anything in here about that aspect.
Yeah, so the actual decision on what would go in probably won't happen until it goes more into a design phase. But it could be a combination of trees and shrubs and flowers, and I know the Shade Tree and Sidewalk Committee has done a really nice job with putting a plan together for some of those elements of what the town looks like. And so we would want to make sure to respect kind of the existing feel of the landscaping and plantings throughout town.
And also when the side path goes in, the intent is to have I think Evan mentioned at least a 5-foot barrier between the curb of the road and the side path. That space becomes available for some kind of a landscaping, whether it's just, grass area or
Something that requires minimal maintenance. That's our,
well,
that's one of our goals.
Mhm.
but
Look,
that would be a
not
space.
over, but
Yeah, but that could be a space where you could add some, treatments to green up the space. Probably low maintenance is desirable. I don't think you would be talking about tree plantings only because trees tend to grow and then they can, pop the pavement along the path and so. But as Casey mentioned, that's probably a detail that would be worked out when things went into design. That's when you're really gonna make that decision of what it's gonna look like.
I have a question on 47 where you at the intersection with 6. How does that impact the very large semi-tractor trailer trucks with the oversized farm vehicles that I see make all kinds of turns at that intersection? It's a very busy intersection, and I've seen them take full advantage of what is there right now to just get it through. And as much as I'd love to see that better controlled, I also don't want to see them nailing one of the buildings or that. They're very large trucks.
So a couple little aspects on the design detail side. One, sorry, now I have to look very close to the monitor to see it. The trucks turning off of Route 47, if you see how far back or how far down that crosswalk is positioned, that's done for a couple reasons. One, it is sort of the easiest, shortest distance, but it also is going to allow those turning trucks some extra space to swing around for their turn without encroaching on any of the travel lanes. And then as the project, as this project were to advance, another thing that could be done to help facilitate that is to make the curb that, Evan, maybe you can point with your pointer on sort of the top left quadrant of the intersection, make that curb mountable, like if they needed to, just so in case the back wheels of a truck do come across it. But I think there's a couple different angles to it. Ideally, we've got it positioned back far enough that most of your truck turning movements are not going to encroach upon any of the other lanes.
But it does impact parking in that small quadrant right there of the business that's right on the corner, and then there's a multifamily house right there. So that would impact the parking to that particular business, if I'm understanding the diagram.
Yeah, that's all in the right way.
No, I know it's all in the right of way. I'm just raising that just as a comment, because there is an active business there. There has been one for the better part of 40 years. I don't take away from the design. I just have concerns that perhaps we need to consider something on parking so that they don't lose out for their businesses at some point somewhere.
Their parking is in the back. But
Very little. It's tight.
Not for the business.
Right.
You're talking about
There's a
The
Go ahead.
side path, the blue side path is
Yeah.
through the front, which is existing parking, and that would essentially.
I see. Yes. Okay. So
Yeah, that building on a corner is fine. Everything in front of there is state property, but business that occupies it on the first floor uses it for their customer parking. Tenants on both of those houses, the tenants park in the back. And there is some limited parking in the front for, but it's all owned by the state, so any kind of path going through there would have to blend in, I think, naturally with the parking lot.
But it does make it difficult for people making a right-hand turn off of Main Street, up Washington Road, very difficult, and especially for our first few engine going up that road, because if you narrow that down, the vehicles cannot move out of the way or back up so that we can get a truck around that corner.
Yeah, I also work across the street there, so I see many people coming south, trying to make the right, and it's not easy. I don't know if that corner could be widened.
Especially if you bring that lane over, it's gonna make it even a tighter turn to get onto Washington Road.
Okay. There's two things. Look at the right turn southbound, and then also look at the parking right on the southwestern corner.
Yeah, the little house there on the left had a commercial use there, and there's parking in front of him too, that is in the state right, it's owned by the state. All of that parking was for commercial uses at one time. And if the side path or whatever, the shared use takes all that up, they'll have nothing.
Yeah.
That might be an area where the path has to be like almost near the road somehow and narrow, not as wide. But coming down 847, yeah, you've heard it. They come whipping around that corner and make that turn. Maybe a no turn on red or something would be good, I think, on that corner. No right turn on red.
That's something that, the no right turn on red was something that the owners at Campbell Corner recommended several meetings ago, because things were fine until we started right on red in Connecticut. And I know this came up at an earlier meeting, and it was shared with us that the DOT doesn't like to go back to all the turns being no right on red. But it's a very heavily traveled intersection with pedestrians and vehicles and bicycles. I think everybody could live with no right on red. I
Well,
mean,
just that one approach, I think.
it's
Yeah.
just,
The other approaches are fine, it's just that one approach.
yeah,
They don't even stop.
no,
They just roll.
they run.
They roll
Yeah.
right through there.
Can we go back to 6 and 317 for a minute? I wanted to better understand how this was gonna work and what was gonna happen to the parking that sits along right near 317 intersection. Because right now, with the new setup that the DOT put out there for the sidewalks, you kind of take your life into your hands when you're trying to cross the street in certain spots, because it's not always visible to those that are making the turns. Of course, they don't stop there either before they make their turns. They just go flying, and it's not pretty over there. So I just wanted to better understand how you're going to try to improve this intersection, because it's really problematic.
Yeah, you're talking about southbound drivers on Route
Yeah.
6
Yeah,
on 317.
yep,
Yeah, well, we hope and we think that the new curb extension will help, and then the existing parking will be better delineated. I know that's a common thing we heard is just there were markings there at some point, but they've been just so heavily faded. It's unclear, what that space is even for. So markings.
the state told us we couldn't have them when they repaved. We asked to have them put back, and the state said no.
Yeah.
The DOT of the state said no. I can't tell you who said no, but they absolutely told us we couldn't put them back.
Because they didn't have any comments in the TAC about the presence of these. That's
Okay.
good to know. Okay. They said you couldn't have that type of parking.
I have a guess of where that may have come from, Evan. I can follow up with you offline.
Okay.
That may have been just because of the type of repaving program, and sometimes they're
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I
So
guess-
just
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I guess I would also ask, just at the end of that parking, there is a business, it's a chiropractor, that's right after Drakely Real Estate, as you're heading south. I was hoping that the state would allow them to put in bollards or something, because right now, when they come up to park to go to their chiropractor appointment, they roll right over the sidewalk. And that puts the pedestrian, the bicyclist, everybody right back out onto the street. And the state said back then to the property owner that had the business, no, you can't put anything there, that's state property. We're not gonna allow it because it'll interfere with plowing and things like that. So it's those little pieces, because that's a very heavily traveled section of the sidewalk.
So the walkway that you have there in the blue, is that envisioned to be a little bit elevated with a curve?
Yeah.
Yes, there'd be a curve, and then so it's 6-7 inches above the adjacent roadway.
So that would address it.
Well, I
Long
think it's
term.
still overhanging, but
Long term.
is something.
Okay.
You're mentioning third lanes. If we're not gonna be widening Main Street, how are we gonna accommodate that?
When did I mention third lanes?
Left turns?
Oh, left turns. Yeah, well, we just used the existing space. There was some excess space, and we did narrow the lanes a tad bit. Yeah. So that's how we fit it all in.
Another idea, I've noticed that at Mountain Road, your crosswalk on Main Street. It's more specialized, if you want to call it that, than the other crosswalks on Main Street.
Yes.
If you're gonna do anything to one, I would recommend just to try to keep them all uniform, because people just focus on that one and they just ignore the other ones because they're just some painted lines on the road, that's it. Try to keep more uniform, if you know what I mean, to more awareness for drivers to some degree.
Okay. Yeah, just looking at that photo.
I mean, if for example, if you're gonna raise that one a little, raise them all a little then. And that's the only way to, I hate to do that, but whatever you do, try to keep them more uniform, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. I appreciate that comment.
I also got another comment about the width of the sidewalk or the path. Some places I think it makes sense to be out to about 8 feet, but there's a lot of places in the middle of town, historic district, that something 8 foot wide could, I think, take away from the character of that stretch. So maybe there should be some recommendations as to width levels in various spots of the path, that because I don't think we could do 8 or 12 feet all the way, 8 feet through town, all the way from north to south. I don't think that could be done.
So we can't do 12 feet everywhere, but we can do 10 to 12 in most places. I can call out better the specific locations where that's not possible.
Well, I just don't think even 10 to 12 in some of the historic, along some of the historic paths would be visually aesthetic. There's an existing sidewalk there that gives kind of an old town, old flavor to it. And a wide, big new path going past some of these old historic homes may not do what, may not meet that criteria of keeping the historic characteristic of the town.
Yeah.
So what is the minimum width that would be recommended for a shared use path?
Minimum is 8, but that's in very constrained locations. I will say we did talk to our sub-consultant AHS, which does historic preservation and historic maintenance, and they came up with some good ideas for that are not here but are in the final report for how to ensure that it looks good within a historical setting and sort of fits. So if
example of that?
let me see. 1 second. will stop sharing for 1 second. It relates to different paving types.
Might have a shoulder the edges be different kind of pavement, different colors, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Different
yeah,
direction.
one can use different colors. Second.
Is it the colorful put into the concrete? Is that?
Well, the idea is you can see a narrow path that's more traditional, and then the edges is different, so it kind of blends more into the landscape. You don't get the whole stark thing being white, across 12 feet. You got a narrow path 6 feet or wherever it's white, then you got the edge, but you have the pavement to walk on.
I think the public would need to see that to better understand what we're talking about when we talk about shared use, if that's one of the ways to address it. Cause I'm with Tom, I think just a big 8-foot wide, 10-foot wide shared use that isn't aesthetically pleasing isn't gonna sit very well.
Right through the historic district, right?
Just in general, because of the character of the town, so. If there are things that are done to make it aesthetically pleasing with different types of materials on both sides, it still allows traffic. I think it's important to share an example or two of what that is.
Well, I think he was suggesting it wasn't fine, not, it's.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she has talked about what we could do at retaining walls. I will add in. Her and I had discussed this, and I will add in some images, some recommendations of what that could look like into the report. Talking about the path itself, not just the retaining walls. So I will add that in.
I don't want to speak.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to show some measures that could take a wide walkway and kind of visually melt that into the surroundings. So it doesn't look wide. So it doesn't look like you could put a car on. Let's not look at it.
Okay, yeah, I will add that. I will absolutely add that.
That'll help. So here's the big question. Okay, some of the things that have been suggested are safety issues. Are those safety issues that the DOT is going to put the dollar money out for? Or is that something that it falls to the town to do when you talk about the flashing beacons and things like that? Because clearly in this study, you've identified some areas where we've got some safety issues. And those cost dollars. So I'm asking the loaded question of who covers it and how does it get covered, or how does something like this all get laid out?
Did we lose Rich Donovan?
Yeah, Rich had to step out for an FTA meeting, so we apologize.
I guess I'll try to answer that question. It really depends.
Okay.
This is a state road,
Yeah.
state maintained. What the next step is, Evan and his team are gonna put together the final report, the final recommendation. It's gonna be a public meeting where we'll talk about it and present.
Yeah.
But then the next step is really up to the town if they want to go ahead and start proceeding with these kinds of improvements. And unfortunately, nobody has the money to do this all at once.
No.
It's gonna have to be done in phases and steps. But if you have a plan laid out, at least you have a good plan going forward. So depending on what you want to do first, that's when we can start looking for what money is available to do some of these projects. The state's big on safety. There's a lot of federal dollars that can support safety improvement projects. And that would be one first step to look at, what kinds of actions would fit into a safety program. Now, the side path is more of a transportation alternatives type, but again, there is a program that is funded through US DOT dollars and CT DOT dollars to do, these non-traditional types of improvements. So that kind of money is available. Those kinds of things still would require a local match of some degree. Usually it's 20%. So again, the bottom line is this, it's gonna be the town's decision to decide what they want to do. What they want to emphasize first, and then we can start looking at the house. Some of the low costs RRFBs, that's the thing that we can try to see if we can get some safety dollars to implement more quickly than these larger scale projects. Now, there is a program the region manages called the local local transportation capital improvement program. And what that is, the state does provide funding to do local improvements. And that would be, through the COG, the request from the community. We would come up with a project, and then, we can sort of have, as funding is available, we can use lots of money to make that improvement. It does require the town to can do 100% of the design. That's the match for this program by the town. It's a very competitive program. There's a lot of money available, but never enough. But that's another source that can do some of these more non-traditional. Anything that's on the road itself, like the intersection improvements or realignment of lanes, that's where we go to the state and say, look, it's your road. This is something we've identified. You build it. And if we can convince them that falls under their capital program, and that would not require any local match because it's a state road. So it's 20% state chip in, 80% federal. So long-winded answer, there's a lot of moving parts to figure it out. And the first thing is that identifying priorities, Evan and Casey are going to come up with sort of a phased approach. This is what we can do now. This is what we can do, in segments. But if we have a plan, at least you have a plan to have some vision of what you want to do. That's what we did in Oxford. Oxford was trying to do a similar type thing with building site path, but they didn't have a comprehensive plan. They just were like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. We said, no, look, step back, look at the whole corridor, decide how you wanted this to look, and then, we can pull out chunks and, fun things. They started. But really, the key is, like I said, the AECOM is putting together their professional opinion of what they think is needed. But then ultimately, it's going to be the town to decide, this is what we want to do. This is what we'd like to do. And quite honestly, as you go through this thing, there could be some, public pushback, and when you actually start putting shovels in the ground. There's a good point about, we don't want this 10 foot, wide path because it changes the look. Okay, that may be, a fatal flaw in this thing, but we're gonna, we're in the town, we're gonna try and, minimize that visual impact thing, so it would be more acceptable, but it is gonna be, we're not dictating. We don't come in, oh, well, we're gonna do this tomorrow, and you guys can't do anything. This is actually ultimately your project and your decision.
Well, the one positive thing about that is showing that with most part can be accommodated.
Yes.
So anything less is still gonna fit.
Well, and understand with a multi-use shared use path, if you're gonna have bikes and pedestrians co-mingled, it has to be a minimum of 8 feet. You can't go less. Does that mean if there are sections of this road that you can't do that? Do you put something on both sides of the road that, sort of accommodate, unidirectional so that, bikes are going, with the flow of traffic on both sides, not on this shared use path? Not, that gets a little bit more awkward, but, sometimes it's done that, where you can't fit something in, to try to do the best you can. But if the goal is to have a shared path to accommodate both bicyclists and pedestrians. There are some things you'll have to live with, and 8-foot minimum is one of those, things you'll have to live with. As Casey was saying, Evan was saying, there could be treatments that would lessen that visual impact and make it more, fit into the character of the town.
Yeah, and there's definitely places where 8 to 12 feet is gonna be noticeable, but if you think about, I don't know if these tables are 6 or 7 feet, but. It's to the water bottom. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it is in the landscape, it's a lot smaller than what you think on this
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, and it's like I said, Oxford has done some so you could drive on 67 in Oxford and sort of get it, this is what it could look like. Because I believe that most of that I think is 10 feet. I think it's a minimum of 10. Not positive, but I don't think it's 8 feet. I think they went, trying to do 10 the whole.
Yeah, it's
whole
pretty,
course.
it's pretty far.
Yeah.
They do community connectivity for that?
Yeah, 10-foot minimum.
You can do community connectivity in spots. That's another one. It's another state program that looks at improving pedestrian connections in corridor. They're less. They're sort of like lower cost types of improvements. Usually they focus in on an intersection, but you can do things that would add in some of the pedestrian crosswalks, the curb extensions, RFPs, things like that. Because again, the problem with an RFP, if you do one location, the cost is so little compared to what is required for a federal aid program. That's why we, if we do RFPs, try to work it into a state safety project that they're looking at, either the whole district or whole region. So that, they're doing, 20 locations, not just the one that you're worried about in Woodbury. So, but like I said, Evan, you're gonna have some, a chapter on possible funding sources as part of this.
Yep.
Okay.
Implementation of funding.
Yeah, the COG is available to help the town, take your vision and turn it into a project and, see if we can get a project initiated. Like I said, long answer.
It's nice to think that there might be some short-term things that we
Yeah.
can take a look at.
And then again,
especially the beacons in this areas where we have safety issues.
Yeah, and again, that's the reason why we do this kind of a comprehensive corridor study, but then look at the phases.
Yep.
And what can be sort of do, immediately, short term, midterm, long term.
And if they met with the state on this preliminarily before their final plan, they're okay so far with, at least right now,
Right now, yeah.
what is sitting here. With any suggestions that might get added to come
Right.
back to the final product.
And that's the main reason why we established this technical advisory committee.
Okay,
Too often in the past, when we do these planning studies, and then we bring it to the DOT and they'd be like, oh, gee, we can't do that. Oh, no, that's not. And so what we're trying to do is meet with the DOT, their engineers, during the project. So they're well aware of what it is we're looking at, and they can provide us feedback in terms of that's not doable. No, we have to think about this, or that, yeah, that could work. So we're trying to get their buy-in, before, the town must start making decisions on what makes sense, so.
and so they bought into the Middle Road Turnpike flashing beacon idea,
Yeah, well.
even without a potential sidewalk.
At this time, and again,
Because
the
there's
problem with
long
DOT is
evidence.
there's so many different units, and you talk to one group. And then when it actually goes higher up, it's like, oh no, we can't do that, it's like.
No,
So, but
exactly.
we're trying to eliminate,
Because it's a walk to the high school, but a lot of people take a walking movement very often. Come down Middle Road Turnpike, go up Middle Road Turnpike, go around and get around town.
And
So it's
the,
just a-
the good news is the department is much more aware of the need to accommodate all travelers, walkers, bicyclists and everything. And, they are really very supportive now, much more supportive of, actions that are, accommodating people walking and stuff like that. And they understand there's a need to, where people are walking to provide those sidewalks.
And I would think that would be higher in towns that really don't have public transportation. So that as a rural town, it doesn't have any of that.
Right.
That can help.
Right. Yeah. And,
Okay.
so, but it is, it's a process and, it does take some time. But again, we're trying to get that vision, so, as the town decides we want to do something, we can push it forward.
So I was curious if anyone had reactions to the Park Road intersection there.
I was just gonna bring that up. I find that to be one of the major historical points of our town, that Hollow Road area. And to start messing around with it's really gonna get a lot of pushback. And the 10% grade going up that hill, this is New England, this isn't Arizona.
Mhm.
You're gonna have a lot of problems in the winter. It's just creating more problems. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. You might consider maybe a one-way traffic flow or something, but I wouldn't be tearing up the property and realigning roads and closing things. It's the focal point of our town. We don't wanna screw with it.
Part of the charter tree or something. Right?
The Charter Oak is down at, on Hollow Road across the street from the floral shop. And it's, the
That's
seed
not
through that
true.
tree came from the original Charter
Yeah,
Road.
that's not getting shut down.
And
I think we tried that much, closing Hunt Road, closing Hollow Road, we've tried before. We've tried one-way traffic there, we've done that.
Yeah,
It lived, it didn't work.
And like we said, it's a concept that, we learn to look at. And you haven't, just because it's in the report doesn't mean that it's going to be ever be built. But it is a concept that may have some validity, you might want to just consider it. But like I said, when, at the end of the day, it may not be feasible. And you gotta choose your battles out.
Is there a different place? Cause I'm the one that raised trying to get a crosswalk to get to Hollow Road, because so many people use the sidewalk, then they wanna cut across the street to go to the deli, go down to Hollow Park, whatever it is, or walk in the grass and go down to 1754. So is there an alternative rather than going right up the middle of, creating that new four-way intersection that could be provided so that we could get a crossing, so people can cross the sidewalk and take a walk down to Hollow Road or get to the deli or any of those places? Because otherwise, technically, without jaywalking, you're coming up to 317.
Well, how about between Town Hall and Doolittle Hill? That's less. Just an idea.
I mean, that really needs to be looked at, because my experience where Dooley lived, that's like the worst place to cross.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, it is very scary.
I don't like Doolittle Hill to cross. I would rather see it on the Park Road
Yeah, down the
side, because it's visually, both ends can see you.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I would say there.
I'm just worried about the part of the deli, that intersection is so congested with traffic.
I know it is.
And it'd be a tough spot to put it somewhere right around there.
I cross there with regular.
I do too, and I just,
Well, you'd have to rework some of that, you have to.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some degree to do that.
maybe there's something that can be done so it can go from Park Road and get to across the street. And you just do something up at the top near the street.
Maybe the alignment of that spur would be better. There is land on the north end of it to play with it without having to do the major thing.
Yeah.
So I think that intersection would be better staying down.
But there's so many people that go to Hollow Park, and there's so many people that walk and like to.
Well, if you put it there, you could put the crosswalk there, make it a set of steps down there through there, which would be less intrusive. Stop the truck traffic on Park Road, because there's no interest to the quarry anyway on that road anymore, and that would back your flow off, your congestion.
Well, the Park Road, keeping trucks out is up to the board of selectmen.
Well, I'm just talking out loud.
How
the trucks get there then?
They combine like they always do.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I know.
Go to some board of selectmen meetings.
No, I'm just saying that they started the trucks on Park because that was the entrance.
Right.
No more entrance, so why are we on Park? And
Yeah,
it's
Exactly, so it's the way
It's
to
the,
monitor the traffic to keep them off of Bacon Pond, it would go down and then turn
Oh,
out
I
of
thought
Bacon
Bacon Pond
Pond.
was preferred.
No,
Oh,
Well, Bacon Pond is to go out,
Bacon Pond is to go out, but not to come in.
wow, okay.
but,
That's such a
those
narrow.
big-
That's fine.
I understand, but you know, it's that traffic.
More than reduce.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it splitting off the traffic, so it's coming in one way, going out the other way, but those big trucks on Park Road. Pretty scary.
Well, they're scary on Bacon Pond as well,
Well,
so, you know,
was,
they're far
yeah, they at the bottom.
at the bottom is.
Yeah, that is it.
the only other thing I would share is, I'm on the Safety and Sidewalk Committee, and we got that grant. With your help and everybody else's help for 6 and 64. Some of the improvements you want there, I think cut in a little bit in the overall plan, so we would have to take a look. I didn't get a chance to look at our map to see how it matched up against this. But Ann, our chairman, is coming to the next meeting and she's far more familiar with the map layout. And Will might have a copy of it that we can look at to see where we might have, because we've already got approval for all of that good stuff, so.
Can you share that? Because I'm not sure if Evan has that map that you're looking at.
I'm not sure if the green space bumps out into the street or bumps in
Yeah, so we just have
to the
to,
park. Cause it looks like it bumps out.
we just have to get it all
Oh, yeah, you want to definitely want to.
so that we know.
Yeah, it's
So
consistent.
yeah, those maps digital, or they just.
Yeah.
What's that?
If you-
Are they digital?
Which map?
Maps you talked about,
I don't know what maps that,
that you have.
Yeah.
that we have. I don't know what she has.
Okay.
I know she's worked from something, so
So like I said, if there's anything available that you can provide, please
just that
send
we
it
can
up.
share.
Yeah. So that, send it to us at the COG, we'll make sure it gets
Well,
paid.
you guys helped us with
Look at
it anyway, so.
Yeah, I thought you, yeah.
I think there's something in that one of that section, but I didn't get to talk to Ann in detail, so I can't pinpoint it for you, but I will.
Yeah, I think I can do that at the beginning. What?
Yeah, well, 6 and 64 came up after each very quarter, I think so.
Any other comments?
That's fair enough.
And if you think of anything else, don't hesitate to, reach out and send us an email at the COG and, any other additional thoughts or comments or concerns, because, we're not closing this meeting per se. I mean, you're always able to, provide some additional information, and thoughts. Because like I said, we're trying to, the goal of this thing is to, improve safety through, through the center of town. But ultimately it is something the town has to, endorse and, like.
So next week, did I hear correctly that you bring some large scale maps?
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, we can bring something plotted out at a large scale to be able to roll out.
Yeah, I did, or even something you can put up so when people arrive, they can look at it.
Sure.
Yeah, something.
I think that's always helpful. It's hard to see sometimes on the screen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about the intersections at the meeting, instead of the slide that has the text, stay on the intersection
Okay.
image. Because I know it's repeated, but it's really tiny.
Yeah.
I will try to do that.
Well,
I think we're all set, Evan.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
No,
the long range plan.
that's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for your.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.